You think you're so smart, but I'm not some fool you can mess with.
Listen here, you arrogant fool. Your lies end right now, or I'll personally make sure you regret ever stepping into my courtroom.
Who the hell do you think you are, sitting there with your gavel, acting like some god? You can shove your courtroom and your rules straight up your gut.
The courtroom held its breath the moment the 320-pound conman swaggered in. His cheap polyester suit stretched across broad shoulders, and turned to Judge Judy with a smug grin that seemed to say he owned the room. "Your Honor," he began, his tone smooth, almost rehearsed. "This elderly woman is simply confused. At her age, memory isn't always reliable." But what Derek Thompson didn't realize was that Judge Judy had already anticipated every move. Behind the scenes, a crucial witness waited, someone who would unravel every lie he had carefully constructed, exposing him for the predator he truly was. What unfolded next would go down as one of the most shocking courtroom moments of 2024. Watched by millions, shared endlessly across social media, and branded with the hashtag #GaslighterExposed. Trending worldwide for days, this wasn't just about a botched home renovation. It was about a predator who leveraged his size, his booming voice, and psychological manipulation to intimidate elderly women, making them doubt their own sanity while he drained their life savings before diving into the moment his web of deceit unraveled. Make sure you hit that like button if you believe con artists and manipulators deserve public exposure. Subscribe, because what you're about to witness will restore your faith in justice and prove that no matter how skilled a liar, karma has a way of catching up. And trust me, the secret witness at the end will leave you speechless. Cheering for justice, Linda Martinez sat in the plaintiff's chair, trembling as her 72-year-old hands gripped a folder stuffed with receipts, photographs, and the shattered remnants of her late husband's dream. A retired elementary school teacher, Linda had spent 4 decades shaping young minds, teaching honesty, integrity, and the importance of doing the right thing. Now, living on a fixed monthly income of $1,800 from Social Security, she struggled to keep up with bills in the modest home she and her husband Robert had bought 30 years ago. Robert had passed away 14 months earlier from heart disease. His final wish had been simple, that Linda convert his old workshop into a beautiful craft room where she could pursue her lifelong passion for quilting, and perhaps even teach local children the skills her grandmother had taught her decades ago. Then Derek Thompson stormed into her life like a hurricane in a cheap suit. Linda had been scrolling through Facebook one quiet evening when an ad appeared, crafted to target her zip code. It promised professional contractor, 15 years experience, specializing in senior-friendly renovations, licensed and insured, satisfaction guaranteed. Beautiful transformation photos of rooms with smiling elderly clients accompanied it, alongside glowing 5-star reviews praising his professionalism and attention to detail. What Linda didn't know, every image was stolen from other contractors' websites. Every review fabricated, and the license number provided didn't exist in any state database. Within an hour of her inquiry, Derek called, his voice syrupy and reassuring, peppering his speech with sweetheart and honey as if they were lifelong friends. He spun tales about his own grandmother, claimed he specialized in helping seniors, and assured her that his pricing would be fair for someone on a fixed income. He arrived in a truck with removable magnetic signs, wearing a polo emblazoned with a fake company logo, clipboard in hand to complete the illusion of legitimacy. For 2 hours, he measured, nodded sympathetically at Linda's memories of Robert, and promised a renovation that would honor her late husband's legacy. His quote, $8,500 for complete renovation, removing old workbenches, installing new drywall, proper electrical work for lighting, and custom shelving for fabrics and quilting supplies. Then he pushed hard for a $6,000 cash deposit, framing it as a way to save on contractor fees and pass the savings to her. He rushed her through signing the contract, confusing her with technical jargon about load-bearing walls and electrical codes. By the time Linda realized the gravity of the commitment, she had handed over nearly all her emergency savings money carefully tucked aside for medical bills and property taxes to a man she had known. For less than 3 hours, The nightmare began almost immediately. Over the next 3 weeks, Derek appeared sporadically, always late, always distracted by his phone. Walls were torn down without support, electrical wiring was botched, creating fire hazards, and he damaged a gas line that leaked carbon monoxide into her home. Robert's beloved workshop, filled with 30 years of tools and memories, was now a dangerous, unstable zone. When Derek demanded an additional $2,500 for unexpected complications, Linda finally realized something was terribly wrong. A licensed contractor she hired for inspection confirmed her fears. Live electrical wires, compromised load-bearing walls, and a gas line leaking deadly carbon monoxide. Repair estimates topped $14,000, far beyond the $6,000 she had entrusted to Derek. That's when his true nature surfaced. The warm, charming contractor vanished, replaced by a menacing, condescending bully. "You're misremembering our agreement, Linda. At your age, memory gets fuzzy. You approved every decision," he sneered. "These problems were already there. You're just trying to scam me." The gaslighting had begun. Derek was a master at psychological warfare, knowing exactly which fears and insecurities to exploit. He began showing up unannounced, looming in her doorway to intimidate her physically, sending threatening messages at all hours, and creating fake evidence that made her question her own memory. Linda's health deteriorated. She lost weight, stopped eating properly, and began panicking at every phone ring. Her daughter, seeing her mother's decline via weekly video calls from 3 states away, urged her to fight back, to report Derek, to take him to court. But fear and self-doubt had paralyzed Linda. He had convinced her that she was the problem, not him. What Linda didn't know was that she wasn't alone. Derek Thompson had been running this scheme for years, targeting widows and widowers across 3 states, meticulously studying their finances and personal vulnerabilities. He had exploited at least 13 other elderly homeowners using the exact same methods, but he had underestimated one thing: Linda's daughter, who refused to let her mother become another silent victim. She gathered every receipt, message, and photograph of the damage, reached out to other victims online, and compiled an evidence package that would soon land directly in Judge Judy's hands. Derek Thompson walked into Judge Judy's courtroom, fully confident, fully unaware that he was stepping into the trap of a lifetime. At 320 pounds, he dominated the room, smirking at Linda and expecting another easy victory. But Judge Judy was ready, calm, patient, and razor-sharp. She had reviewed every document, identified every inconsistency, and counted 23 lies before Derek even set foot in her courtroom. The first words he uttered, dripping with fake sincerity, were classic Derek Thompson. "Your Honor, I'm actually the victim here. Mrs. Martinez is confused. She doesn't understand construction. I did exactly what she asked." Linda braced herself. This was the same manipulation she had endured for months. But Judge Judy, eyes cold and precise, had seen it all before. She would dismantle Derek's lies methodically, and she would savor every moment. Asterisk, the courtroom remained tense, every eye fixed on the unfolding drama. Derek Thompson, the 320-pound conman who had terrorized elderly women for years, sat with an air of overconfidence that barely concealed the unease beginning to seep in. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp and unyielding, as if she could see straight through his carefully constructed lies. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice deceptively calm, "where is your contractor's license?" Derek's smile flickered for the briefest second before he smoothly replied, "I have it, Your Honor, registered in multiple states. I've been a professional for 15 years. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow, that familiar look of scrutiny that viewers recognized instantly, a signal that someone's story was about to unravel. "Show me the license number," she said. Derek fumbled with his phone, scrolling awkwardly through screens. I don't have it pulled up right now. I can get it for you. You came to court to collect $2,500, but you didn't bring your license information?" Judge Judy's tone was surgical, each word designed to puncture his armor of arrogance. Derek's smirk faltered. The trap was being laid, thread by thread. Judge Judy's questioning continued, seemingly simple, yet methodically designed to expose every flaw in his narrative. Did you pull permits for this work? Derek shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Martinez said she didn't want to deal with permits. That's not true, Linda's small, steady voice interjected. He told me permits weren't necessary for interior work. Judge Judy held up her hand. Mrs. Martinez, I'll get to you in a moment. Mr. Thompson, removing wood-bearing walls requires permits in every jurisdiction. Are you telling me you were unaware? Derek's strategy shifted to aggression. Your Honor, with all due respect, you're not a contractor. Sometimes field judgment is required. You wouldn't understand the complexities involved. The courtroom went silent. Judge Judy's expression turned from professional interest to barely contained fury. With all due respect, she snapped, are you suggesting I don't understand basic construction law? Derek, emboldened by arrogance, doubled down. Television judges might not fully grasp on-site contracting decisions. That was the fatal error, the overconfidence Judge Judy had been waiting for. She opened the folder on her bench, her voice now precise and cutting. Mr. Thompson, here is what I know. You're not licensed as a contractor in any state. The photos you showed Mrs. Martinez, stolen from other contractors' websites. The text messages claiming her approval, sent from a burner phone linked to your business partner. And you have a documented pattern of targeting elderly widows with this scam. Derek's face shifted from red to pale white within seconds. That's not accurate. Those are mistakes. Judge Judy pulled out a series of printed documents. Building department records, business license databases, reverse image searches, each piece a nail in Derek's coffin. His aggressive posture collapsed, the booming voice faltered, and sweat darkened his suit like ink spreading across paper. He tried to speak, but only fragmented excuses escaped him. Judge Judy wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She had methodically built a case to this moment, and now it was time for the final, devastating blow. She glanced at Linda Martinez, who straightened slightly in her chair, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. Perhaps she hadn't been imagining Derek's manipulations all along. Perhaps she hadn't been crazy. Mr. Thompson, Judge Judy said, her tone measured, I have someone who wants to speak with you today. Someone who knows you well. The courtroom monitor flickered to life, revealing a woman in her mid-70s, silver hair pulled back, glasses perched neatly on her nose, her living room calm and well-lit. A nameplate at the bottom read, Maria Chen, Phoenix, Arizona. Derek's reaction was instantaneous. His body jerked back as if struck. Eyes wide, mouth slack. Pale as a ghost terror etched on his face as if the past had come to confront him. Maria's voice was clear, steady and commanding. Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am here to tell Mrs. Martinez and everyone present that she is not confused. She is not mistaken, and she is not alone. What Derek Thompson did to her, he did to me 8 months ago. The exact same lies, the exact same manipulation, the exact same gaslighting. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Audience members reached for their phones, capturing the moment that would soon go viral. Maria continued, recounting her own experience. In February of last year, I hired Mr. Thompson to renovate my bathroom. He found me through a Facebook ad targeting seniors in Phoenix. He told me stories about his grandmother, showed me stolen photos, and convinced me he was a licensed professional. I paid $5,000 from my retirement savings. What I received was a destroyed bathroom, a damaged water main flooding my home, and months of psychological torment where he tried to convince me I had approved every destructive action. Derek struggled to rise, but the bailiff's firm hand kept him in place. This is illegal. I never worked for this woman. I don't know her. Maria's gaze, calm yet piercing, met his. Mr. Thompson, I have your signed contract. I have bank records of the $5,000 you took. I have photos of the damage and text messages where you told me, word for word, at your age, memory gets fuzzy. Judge Judy pulled out additional documents. Mrs. Chun filed a police report. She contacted the Arizona Contractor Licensing Board, but by the time she pursued charges, you had moved on, California bound, continuing your pattern of exploiting elderly widows. always staying a step ahead of those too intimidated or confused to fight back. Derek's voice had dwindled to a strangled whisper. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else without a lawyer. Judge Judy's response was swift, merciless. You should have thought about legal counsel before thinking you could gaslight your way through this courtroom. Before you terrorized elderly widows. Before you used your size and voice to intimidate them. You never considered consequences because you believed these victims dismissed by society would remain silent. You were wrong. The transformation was complete. Derek Thompson, the once confident predator, now sobbed openly, body trembling, tears mixing with sweat. His excuses spilled in a pitiful torrent, but Judge Judy's expression remained unyielding. Predators, she knew, did not deserve mercy, they deserved justice. Asterisk, the tension in the courtroom was suffocating. Derek Thompson, once a predator radiating confidence, now sat slumped in his chair, his massive frame shaking as Judge Judy's piercing gaze never wavered. Every eye in the room followed her every word. Sensing that history was about to be made, Judge Judy opened another section of her meticulously organized folder. Mr. Thompson, she said, her voice sharp and controlled. You've been exposed not once, but twice, in 2 separate states, with multiple victims following the same pattern of fraud. And yet here you sit, attempting to minimize your crimes as though you're some misunderstood professional. But courtroom monitor displayed side by side images of Linda Martinez's destroyed workshop and Maria Chen's flooded bathroom, each accompanied by detailed receipts, contracts, and correspondence. Derek's face went from pale to ghostly white, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead under the harsh courtroom lights. He tried to speak, but words failed him. Leaving only fragmented excuses, Judge Judy continued, her tone surgical. You took advantage of elderly widows at their most vulnerable moments. You preyed on their grief, their isolation, their trust, and you used psychological manipulation to convince them they were the problem. You've destroyed not just property, but peace of mind, dignity, and security. Linda sat straighter in her chair, her trembling replaced by a growing sense of vindication. For months, Derek had made her question her own memory, her own sanity, and her own judgment. But now, she could see clearly that she had not been the problem. Derek Thompson had been the predator. Judge Judy turned her attention to Derek, her voice icy. You thought you could intimidate Mrs. Martinez and Mrs. Chen into silence. You thought your size, your threats, and your lies would protect you. But you underestimated the courage of the women you targeted and the reach of this court. Derek's attempts to rise and defend himself were halted by the bailiff. Your Honor, this is outrageous, he shouted, his booming voice cracking. I didn't do anything wrong. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Outrageous is stealing $6,000 from a grieving widow and leaving her home a hazard. Outrageous is destroying a bathroom and attempting to gaslight another woman into thinking she imagined it. Outrageous is believing that predation will go unpunished. She held up a stack of documents, each representing a piece of Derek's deceit. Here are permits never pulled, licenses never held, images stolen from other contractors, fake reviews, burner phone messages, and contracts signed under false pretenses. And here, she continued, opening another folder, is a record of at least 14 victims across 3 states, each manipulated with the same cruel tactics. Mr. Thompson, do you deny any of this? Asterisk, Derek's voice faltered. I made mistakes. I was desperate. I needed money. Judge Judy's voice cut through his excuses like a blade. Desperation is not a license to steal. Greed does not excuse cruelty. And you are not desperate, you are a predator. Your actions were calculated, deliberate, and repeated. The camera captured the courtroom in a hushed silence as Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone even more precise. Linda Martinez, Maria Chen, and the other victims are not just plaintiffs, they are survivors. They trusted this court, and they trusted me. Today, justice will be served. She turned to Linda and Maria, her voice softening for a moment. You two have demonstrated courage, resilience, and integrity. You refused to be silenced by someone who counted on shame and fear to protect himself. You have saved countless others from falling into his trap. And for that, you have my deepest respect. Then, with a shift that made the courtroom feel like the eye of a storm, Judge Judy addressed Derek directly. Mr. Thompson, you will compensate Mrs. Martinez $14,000 for the damage you caused to her home. You will pay an additional $8,500 for the psychological trauma you inflicted. Court costs and legal fees amount to $3,200, bringing your total liability to $25,700. Furthermore, I am forwarding this entire case, including Mrs. Chun's testimony and supporting evidence, to the district attorney in both California and Arizona. Elder fraud is a felony in both states, and your actions constitute at least 14 counts. The gavel came down with a resonant crack, sealing Derek Thompson's fate. His knees buckled, and the bailiff had to support him as he sobbed, the full weight of his exposure crashing down. The courtroom audience, stunned at first, erupted into a standing ovation, not for drama, but for justice finally delivered. Linda collapsed into tears. This time not from fear or despair, but from validation and relief. She had been gaslit, intimidated, and manipulated, yet she had prevailed. Maria Chun, her face on the monitor, mirrored her triumph. Tears of vindication shining in her eyes, Judge Judy, breaking from her usual formal tone, addressed the two women directly. Mrs. Martinez, Mrs. Chun, your bravery has prevented countless other elderly victims from falling prey to the same conmen. You have transformed trauma into action and have demonstrated that courage and truth can outmatch manipulation and deceit. Social media erupted within minutes of the episode airing. Clips of Derek Thompson's meltdown, Maria Chun's testimony, and Judge Judy's relentless questioning were shared millions of times. Hashtags like #gaslighter exposed and #justice4seniors trended globally. Twitter saw more than 1 million tweets in hours, Facebook counted tens of millions of views, and TikTok creators dissected the psychological tactics Derek had used, educating millions on recognizing gaslighting. Reddit discussions spanned true crime forums, legal advice threads, and psychology communities. The courtroom moment didn't just go viral, it became a cultural phenomenon, a masterclass in exposing fraud and validating victims. Derek Thompson, once untouchable in his schemes, was now publicly humiliated and facing imminent legal consequences. Within days, detectives from multiple states contacted Judge Judy's team. 14 additional victims came forward, revealing similar stories of targeted manipulation and financial theft. Derek's total fraud was calculated at $147,000, spanning years and multiple jurisdictions. His arrest followed swiftly, charged with elder fraud, contractor fraud without a license, creating public safety hazards, and identity theft. Derek's criminal life unraveled completely. His business partner, accomplice in creating fake documentation and burner phone evidence, was also arrested and agreed to testify. Derek's personal life collapsed. His wife filed for divorce. His assets were frozen, and his apartment was raided, uncovering files on dozens of potential future victims. Linda and Maria, meanwhile, turned their courage into advocacy. They founded Silver Shield Advocacy, educating seniors about financial fraud, scams, and manipulative tactics. Their nonprofit led to legislative changes in multiple states, including stricter contractor verification, mandatory bonding, and enhanced penalties for elder fraud. Even Judge Judy contributed, donating $10,000 to their cause and featuring them on a follow-up episode to educate viewers. Linda finally completed Robert's workshop, transforming it into a quilting space for the community. Maria renovated her bathroom and set up a Silver Shield office in her home. Together, they transformed their victimization into empowerment and purpose. A courtroom had emptied, but the storm unleashed inside Judge Judy's chambers didn't end with the gavel. Within hours, the Derek Thompson saga became the talk of every corner of the internet. News outlets ran continuous coverage, each segment more sensational than the last. The once confident conman, who had preyed on the vulnerable for years, was now exposed to millions worldwide. Social media erupted. Twitter hashtags like #gaslighter exposed and #justice served dominated feeds. while Facebook posts featuring courtroom clips garnered tens of millions of views within a single day. TikTok creators analyzed the psychological techniques Derek used, educating younger audiences about manipulation and gaslighting. On Reddit, true crime forums and legal advice subreddits dissected every detail from stolen images and fake licenses to burner phone messages. The courtroom showdown became a blueprint for recognizing predatory behavior in everyday life. Meanwhile, Linda Martinez and Maria Chen found themselves at the center of a movement they never expected to lead. Their shared trauma had forged a bond, and together they founded Silver Shield Advocacy, a nonprofit dedicated to educating seniors on financial scams, contractor fraud, and psychological manipulation. Workshops were organized at senior centers, community halls, and even local colleges. They taught seniors how to verify licenses, request permits, document contracts, and recognize warning signs before it was too late. The story's virality had real-world consequences. Within 48 hours of the episode airing, additional victims came forward from across California, Arizona, and neighboring states. Each recounted eerily similar experiences: a friendly contractor promising professional work, convincing elderly clients to hand over thousands, and leaving destruction in his wake. The victims spoke of the same gaslighting tactics: accusations of confusion, claims of prior approval, and subtle threats designed to intimidate and silence them. Detectives and investigators began coordinating across state lines, sharing evidence compiled from Judge Judy's team, the victims themselves, and Silver Shield Advocacy. The legal net tightened quickly. Derek's apartment was searched by authorities, who discovered meticulous files on dozens of potential victims he had researched for future schemes. His business partner, the co-conspirator behind burner phones and fabricated texts, was apprehended and agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. As the investigation gained momentum, Derek Thompson's personal life unraveled. His wife, claiming ignorance of his fraudulent activities, filed for divorce. Bank accounts were frozen by court order. His truck, adorned with fraudulent company logos, was repossessed, and his once pristine reputation was in ruins. Derek, the man who had thrived on fear, intimidation, and deception, had nowhere left to hide. Judge Judy's ruling had already set the tone: $25,700 in restitution for Mrs. Martinez alone, plus the full referral of the case to district attorneys for criminal prosecution. But beyond the courtroom, the cultural impact was equally profound. Elder fraud became a topic of public debate and legislative scrutiny. States began considering measures inspired by Linda and Maria's advocacy: mandatory verification of contractors working with seniors, stricter bonding and licensing requirements, and enhanced penalties for those convicted of predatory fraud. The media frenzy also highlighted the psychological toll of Derek's crimes. Experts discussed gaslighting, showing how a carefully executed pattern of manipulation can make victims doubt their own memory and judgment. Stories flooded in from viewers who had been similarly deceived, creating a broader awareness of predatory behavior across generations. Amidst this whirlwind, Linda and Maria worked tirelessly to turn personal trauma into societal benefit. They developed step-by-step guides for seniors on vetting contractors, recognizing financial exploitation, and documenting interactions. They launched a hotline through Silver Shield Advocacy, offering immediate assistance for seniors who feared they might be targeted. Their initiative became a blueprint for community action against elder fraud, spreading beyond the states directly affected by Derek Thompson's crimes. In courtrooms across the nation, legal professionals used the case as an educational example. Judges, lawyers, and law enforcement cited the Derek Thompson trial as a turning point in the understanding of elder fraud. Training programs were updated, teaching staff how to recognize gaslighting, intimidation, and targeted financial exploitation. At the local level, seniors who had been isolated began to speak out. Community centers saw higher participation in workshops. Family members, previously unaware of potential scams, were educated on how to protect elderly relatives. The conversation about consent, verification, and accountability shifted. Seniors were no longer passive targets, they were empowered, participants in safeguarding their own rights and property. For Derek Thompson, the consequences were swift and unrelenting. Criminal charges were filed across 3 states. 14 counts of elder fraud, 9 counts of contractor fraud without a license, 6 counts of creating public safety hazards, and 3 counts of identity theft. The legal machinery moved quickly. The evidence compiled by victims, combined with Judge Judy's meticulous documentation, left prosecutors with a near unassailable case. While Derek awaited trial in county jail, Linda and Maria prepared to testify. Their courage, their documentation, and their dedication to truth became the backbone of the prosecution's case. The courtroom was set to become a theater of accountability, where a man who had spent years intimidating the elderly would finally face justice under the full weight of the law. The story of Derek Thompson transcended one courtroom. It was no longer just a case, it had become a movement. Social media, traditional news, and community advocacy converged to shine a light on elder exploitation. And at the center of it all were 2 women who refused to remain silent, whose bravery ensured that countless others would be spared the trauma they endured. Asterisk, by the time the trial date arrived, public attention was at a fever pitch. Every development was covered extensively, creating a nationwide conversation about accountability, predation, and the power of evidence and courage. Derek Thompson, the once dominant manipulator, now faced not only the law, but the moral judgment of an entire country. The stage was set for the final act, a courtroom showdown that would conclude years of deception, manipulation, and intimidation with a clear, undeniable statement: predators may act in shadows, but truth, courage, and justice always find a way to the light. Asterisk, the courtroom was packed the morning Derek Thompson's trial commenced. Cameras, journalists, and spectators filled every seat, all drawn by the viral courtroom destruction that had made Derek infamous overnight. The once dominant conman, who had terrorized elderly widows with calculated manipulation, now sat in shackles, his massive frame tense with anxiety and the weight of public scrutiny pressing down on him like never before. Linda Martinez and Maria Chen arrived early, documents in hand, ready to testify. Their courage radiated confidence, a stark contrast to Derek's trembling arrogance. Both women knew the gravity of the moment. This trial wasn't just about money or property. It was about holding a predator accountable and sending a message that manipulation and exploitation would not be tolerated. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Every detail of Derek's pattern of fraud was presented: Facebook advertisements targeting seniors, stolen photos, fake reviews, unlicensed work, and burner phone messages designed to make victims doubt their own sanity. Evidence from 14 victims across 3 states was displayed, each showing similar tactics, similar lies, and similar destruction. When Linda Martinez took the stand, she recounted, calmly but firmly, how Derek had gaslit her for months. She described the panic, the sleepless nights, and the feeling of being trapped in her own home. Her testimony was compelling. She detailed the physical hazards Derek left behind, the exposed wires, the damaged gas line, and the collapse of her late husband's cherished workshop. The jury watched, rapt, as she held up photographs and receipts that documented the full scope of the destruction. Maria Chen followed, her presence on the stand equally powerful. She described how Derek had used the same words and tactics she had endured months earlier, creating a chilling sense of pattern and premeditation. Her evidence included contracts, signed bank receipts, and text messages with identical manipulative language phrases, designed to undermine confidence and coerce compliance. The defense attempted to discredit the victims, but the consistency of the evidence, combined with Judge Judy's prior documentation and viral recordings, left them with little room to maneuver. Derek's defense lawyers argued that some of the evidence was fabricated or misinterpreted, but each claim was systematically dismantled by prosecutors who presented clear documentation, including expert testimony on contractor fraud and psychological manipulation. By mid-trial, Derek's composure had completely unraveled. He could no longer rely on intimidation or his physical presence. His voice cracked as he stammered through answers, his eyes darting nervously at both the jury and the gallery. The same confidence that had allowed him to prey on vulnerable seniors now betrayed him. When the closing statements began, the prosecution painted a vivid picture, a man who had repeatedly exploited grieving, isolated, and trusting individuals, leaving financial ruin, emotional trauma, and unsafe homes in his wake. They reminded the jury that Derek Thompson was not a one-time opportunist. He was a career predator who had meticulously planned each scam. The defense, in contrast, attempted to portray Derek as desperate and misguided, a man who had made mistakes but did not intend harm. Their argument faltered in the face of the overwhelming evidence and the consistent, credible testimonies of the victims. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted with a mixture of relief and astonishment. Derek Thompson, the predator who had once believed himself untouchable, sat in stunned silence, the weight of accountability finally pressing upon him. The judge imposed a sentence reflective of the severity and pattern of Derek's crimes: 8 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. He was ordered to pay $247,000 in restitution to his victims, an amount meant to begin repairing the financial damage he had inflicted across multiple states. Additional penalties included fines, legal fees, and restrictions on conducting any form of contracting business in the future for Linda Martinez and Maria Chun. The verdict was more than just a legal victory. It was a validation of months of fear, anxiety, and grief. Their testimony had not only brought justice, but had also inspired a movement. Silver Shield Advocacy, their nonprofit, expanded rapidly. They developed educational materials, hosted workshops, and worked with local law enforcement to train officers on recognizing elder fraud. Legislators in 3 states passed laws, informally referred to as Linda's Law, which required stricter background checks for contractors working with seniors, mandatory bonding, and stronger penalties for fraud targeting elderly citizens. Senior centers implemented verification programs, giving residents simple tools to confirm the legitimacy of contractors and service providers. The cultural impact extended beyond legislation. The viral courtroom footage and public discussion helped normalize conversations about gaslighting, manipulation, and elder abuse. Families were more vigilant, seniors more empowered, and communities more engaged in protecting their vulnerable members. Linda finally completed her late husband's workshop, transforming it into a bright, welcoming space where she teaches quilting to neighborhood children and seniors, passing on the skills her grandmother had taught her decades earlier. Maria renovated her bathroom properly and set up a home office for Silver Shield Advocacy, turning her experience of exploitation into a powerful platform for change. Judge Judy's episode featuring their story became required viewing in law enforcement training programs, senior advocacy workshops, and consumer protection seminars. The case set a precedent in public awareness, demonstrating that even the most confident and manipulative predators could be exposed and held accountable when courage, documentation, and truth aligned. As Derek Thompson began his prison sentence, the world watched a profound lesson unfold. Predation thrives in silence, but bravery, vigilance, and accountability can dismantle even the most calculated schemes. Linda and Maria's triumph became a symbol for all vulnerable individuals, proof that speaking up, gathering evidence, and refusing to be silenced can change lives and prevent further harm. Their advocacy continues, touching hundreds of lives each year, ensuring that seniors everywhere have a voice and protection against fraudsters. The story of Derek Thompson, once a tale of fear and manipulation, ultimately became a story of justice, empowerment, and the enduring impact of truth. In Judge Judy's courtroom, as in life, predators may appear invincible, but the combination of courage, evidence, and unwavering integrity ensures that justice eventually always prevails. Linda and Maria proved that dignity and protection for the elderly are not optional. They are a societal responsibility, and no manipulator, no matter how brazen, can escape the consequences forever. Asterisk, and that's how justice was served. Exposing a predator who thought he could manipulate and intimidate the most vulnerable. Linda and Maria's courage proves that truth always wins, and that even the most calculated lies will crumble under evidence and determination. If you are inspired by their story and want to see more jaw-dropping courtroom confrontations, shocking twists, and powerful lessons in justice, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a single moment where truth triumphs over deception. Give this video a like if you believe predators should be held accountable, and share it with someone who needs to see what happens when liars and con artists meet someone who refuses to back down. Remember, on this channel, justice isn't just shown, it's experienced. Subscribe now and join us as we uncover more unbelievable courtroom battles that prove karma always finds a way.